I used to think skipping a meal was impossible. The idea of fasting sounded insane to me, like something only extreme people could pull off. I was the type of person who always had food on my mind. If I wasn't eating, I was planning what I was going to eat next. If I was eating, I was already thinking about the meal after that. Food was always running in the background of my life, like a constant hum I couldn't escape. It was comforting at times, but honestly, it was exhausting. I couldn't imagine a life where I wasn't revolving around food. What's funny is that looking back, I had more than enough stored calories to last me months. I was carrying around so much extra weight, yet the thought of not eating for even a few hours made me panic. It didn't make sense, but that's how strong the mental hold of food was on me. So when I first heard about intermittent fasting, I laughed. There was no way I could do that, not me. Not the guy who couldn't even skip breakfast without feeling like the world was ending. Part of where this obsession came from was my past. For years, I worked as a chef in New York City. If you've never lived that life, let me explain it to you. Food is constant. You're tasting dishes all day long, nibbling here and there, making sure everything is right. You never sit down for a proper meal, but you're constantly snacking without even realizing how much you've eaten. Then there's the schedule. We'd close the restaurant at midnight or 1 a.m, and by the time I got home, it was 2 or 3 a.m. And what would I do? I'd binge. I'd eat heavy, greasy food late at night, then crash into bed. Over time, that lifestyle created horrible habits. Food wasn't just fuel. It was comfort, stress relief, routine, and it was everywhere. Now, I don't live that life anymore. These days, I work from home as a freelancer. You'd think that would make things easier, but in some ways, it made it worse. Instead of being on my feet all day in a kitchen, now I'm sitting most of the day in front of a computer. The activity level went down, but the bad eating habits followed me home. Snacking, late night eating, mindless bites throughout the day. It didn't stop just because I left the restaurant. Those habits had sunk deep, and they were killing me slowly. When I first started seriously thinking about losing weight, intermittent fasting kept coming up. Friends, videos, articles, it seemed to be everywhere. Around that time, 2 of my friends actually started fasting. They weren't obese like me, just a little overweight. They were really excited about it, talking about how amazing it felt. And honestly, I thought they were nuts. But here's what's funny. After a while, they couldn't stick with it. They gave up and went back to their old routines. And me, the guy who thought fasting was impossible, I ended up sticking with it. That blew my mind. It showed me that fasting isn't about already being fit or disciplined. It's about breaking habits, about mindset, about patience. At the beginning, though, I couldn't just dive in. Skipping breakfast completely wasn't even an option at first, so I started small. I delayed breakfast by an hour, then 2 hours. I worked my way up little by little until one day I realized I could just skip it altogether. That first time was hard, I won't lie. My body expected food, my mind expected food. But the more I did it, the easier it became. These days, I regularly do 18 hours of fasting and 6 hours of eating. I've even gone 20 hours without even breaking a sweat. I haven't done a full 24 yet, or multiple day fasts, and I don't know if I ever will. But just knowing I could if I wanted to is powerful. The craziest part for me was how hunger actually worked once I started. I was bracing myself for misery, expecting my stomach to growl all day, expecting to feel weak and lightheaded. But that didn't happen. I discovered that hunger is not what I thought it was. Most of the hunger I felt before wasn't real hunger, it was just habit. It was the ghost of years of conditioning, telling me it was time to eat, not that my body truly needed food. And the truth is, With all the extra fat I was carrying, I had plenty of fuel to burn. Once I understood that, fasting stopped being scary. But here's the strangest thing of all. When I started fasting, I actually felt more full. That sounds backwards, right? How can eating less often make you feel fuller? But that's exactly what happened. When I used to graze all day long, I never felt satisfied. It was like I was feeding the hunger in small doses, keeping it alive. But when I started fasting, I had actual meals, bigger, more complete meals that gave me real satisfaction. I learned later that fasting can help reset your hunger hormones, things like ghrelin and leptin, so your body actually gets better at telling you when you're really hungry or when you've had enough. I didn't know the science at first. I just knew that for the first time in my life, I wasn't bloated and stuffed. I was actually satisfied. That shift gave me something even bigger than weight loss. It gave me freedom. For the first time in my life, I wasn't obsessed with food. I wasn't always thinking about what to eat next. I wasn't constantly chained to cravings or feeling like I needed something in my mouth every hour. That gave me back so much mental energy. I could focus on other things, my work, my projects, my life. The noise of food in my head finally got quiet, and that was priceless. It also helped me break free from the habits I built in the kitchen years ago. I wasn't mindlessly tasting all day. I wasn't binging at 2 a.m. anymore. Intermittent fasting gave me boundaries I never had before. It created structure where before there had only been chaos. Food stopped being the center of my life and went back to being what it was supposed to be, fuel. The benefits went beyond weight loss. My energy was steadier throughout the day. I wasn't crashing all the time. My sleep improved because I wasn't going to bed with a heavy stomach. My confidence grew because I felt like I was finally in control of something that used to control me. For years, I felt powerless around food, like it dictated my life. But now, I was dictating when I ate, and that simple reversal changed everything. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The beginning was tough. The first week especially, when my body was still screaming at me out of habit. Social situations are still tricky sometimes. There are days where the cravings are strong, but fasting is like any other discipline. It gets easier with time. Eventually, it doesn't feel like torture. It just feels normal. It becomes part of life. Looking back, the biggest lesson I've learned through intermittent fasting isn't just about losing weight. It's about gaining control. It's about realizing that food doesn't have to run my life anymore. I can go 18 or even 20 hours without food and still function, still work, still feel good. The old me never would have believed that was possible, but it is. And that realization has changed me as much as the weight loss itself. So if you're listening to this and wondering if fasting could work for you, I want to leave you with this thought. If it could work for me, a guy who was a chef, surrounded by food 24/7, who carried years of bad habits into his current life sitting behind a computer all day, then maybe it can help you too. I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying it's the only way. But for me, it's been the single biggest shift in my weight loss journey. Now, I do want to make it clear that I'm not a doctor, I'm not a professional, I'm just a guy sharing what worked for me. If you're thinking about fasting, do your own research, talk to someone you trust, and make sure it's right for you. This is just my story. And if you've made it this far, thank you for listening. If you've ever tried fasting or you're thinking about starting, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Sharing experiences is how we all learn. And if you want to follow along with my journey, hit subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. I'll be sharing the ups, the downs, the struggles, and the wins, because this isn't just about me. It's about showing what's possible when you finally take back control of your life.